Good morning. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Free Press Media Press Inc., an alternative parties books publisher, sponsors this podcast. I'm Andrew Bouchard. Welcome to the Long Live Alternative Parties podcast. Today we have an exciting guest. Like usual, we have the Upper Hudson Green Party. They're going to tell us all about the exciting things they are doing. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
If we can get started by you kindly giving us an introduction to yourself, a brief bio.
Sure. My name is Caleb Winters. I'm a union land surveyor, community organizer, lifelong New York State resident, avid live music fan, and obviously a registered Green Party member, and I live in Troy, New York. I'm currently the chair of the Upper Hudson Green Party. I'm also the co-chair of the Green Party of New York campaign committee, and then I represent a couple other organizations. I'm president of the Eastern New York Society of Land Surveyors, and I'm also the vice president of the Troy Area Labor Council.
Wow, you got a lot of good stuff going on, it sounds like. So for those of us out there who are not familiar with land surveying or know about it in a broad sense, kindly explain to our audience what that entails.
We are basically expert measures. Typically, we do historical deed and legal and title research to place together an opinion of where your property boundaries are currently.
Sounds good. So also kindly explain to our audience where the Upper Hudson region is in your state and what the demographics are.
So the Upper Hudson Green Party is in the capital region of New York State. We actually cover 5 counties. We cover Washington, Rensselaer, Albany, Saratoga, and Schenectady counties. So a number of small cities in the capital of New York State. So most people call it upstate, and it's where the Hudson River meets the Mohawk River. So we have participation from all the 5 counties, and we've been meeting, we meet monthly at least. Organizing during COVID has been, a challenge, but we are still meeting virtually at this point. And we are trying to also incorporate some kind of social meetings during the month as well for newer members or prospective members that might not necessarily want to sit through a business meeting.
Sure. So how did you get involved in the Green Party in the first place?
Like I said, I've lived in New York State all my life. I had moved to Western New York for a job and was looking to meet new people, and the Green Party of the United States was having its annual national meeting in the next county over from me, so I figured I would check it out since there were some local Green speakers, and just was planning to go for a day. I then continued to go for the rest of the conference, which was a 3-day conference, and just really fell in love with the Green Party and said, these are my people. And I got to meet some wonderful folks at that convention, including, some of our presidential candidates that we've had since then, like Jill Stein and Howie Hawkins and others. And so kind of started meeting with local Greens there in the Cattaraugus and Chautauqua County, Allegheny County area, Steuben County a little bit as well.
So tell me about this convention where you got involved in the Green Party in the first time.
So it was held in Alfred, New York at Alfred University in southwestern New York. And so there was a number of workshops about party organizing and, different events that were happening at the time. Fracking was a huge issue in New York State at that time. And others. So I got to meet, a number of great people that I still keep in touch with and organize with today. Hard to believe it was 10 years ago.
Excellent. 10 years ago. Wow. So what issues are in your area that your party is concerned with?
Multitude of issues. We really got involved with police reform during the summer of Black Lives Matter, and which is continuing today, although it doesn't have the broad appeal that it did certainly during 2020. There's a number of environmental issues in our area that are happening. The Norlite facility, which is burning toxic firefighting foam. There's a waste incinerator that we are working to fight. There's a landfill that was built in a city locally that people are fighting. A number of issues, a lot of environmental issues, social issues. But ballot access, I guess, is probably the number one issue that we're fighting in New York State as a whole, not just in our local area, because our former governor, Andrew Cuomo, resigned in disgrace, but before he did, under the cover of COVID, changed our ballot access laws and basically took away our ballot access after the presidential election. So next year, 2022, is when we can try to get our ballot status back, and we're going to need a lot of volunteers and a lot of help doing that, both with fundraising, petition gathering, and then also actively running those statewide campaigns so we can try to get our ballot status back.
Yeah. That'd be awesome if you get that back. So what
kind of
are you planning on hiring?
Ballot status. I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that it is very deflating, both for the volunteers at the party leadership level, all the way down to the volunteer level. And some folks are treating us like we don't exist just because we do not have ballot access. So hopefully that'll change in 2022.
Yes. Hopefully it will. So how are you planning to get the signatures? Are you going to pay people to do it, or are you going to use volunteers, or both?
We are going to have to do both. It is too monumental of a task to do just with volunteers, so we're certainly, actively fundraising at the state level currently to try to pay petitioners to get the amount of signatures, which Andrew Cuomo and the Democrats tripled our number of signatures that we need to get back on the ballot, and then they've also tripled the amount of votes that we need to get in order to keep our ballot status, even if we got it for 1 year.
So for people out there who are involved in campaigns themselves and they need signatures and they have some money, do you have any recommendations on how they can find paid petitioners? Is it as simple as Googling it, or is there more involved?
Yeah, I would search on the internet, but I would also, every area is different. So some petition gathering companies that are, operating in New York State or the Northeast might not work in other areas. So I would recommend reaching out to candidates who were successful getting on the ballot and asking them how they did it. But petitioning, unfortunately, has to be done in person, so it's difficult to get people from different areas of the country to come and help, although we've done that in the Green Party in the past. But, you can certainly help out with other things like social media, web design, outreach, making phone calls for candidates, all that kind of stuff can be done remotely. So I certainly encourage volunteers from everywhere to help out third-party candidates, but in my case, particularly Green Party candidates, wherever they are.
Yes. So I remember at the beginning of the conversation, you mentioned you were chair of two chairs, right? You, in two chair positions, you were chair of the Upper Hudson Green Party, and then you said it was some chair of was it something on the state level too?
Yeah, I'm also co-chair of the Green Party in New York State campaign committee.
Okay, okay. So what do those positions entail for responsibilities?
So, chair of Upper Hudson Green Party, basically represent the party at the local level, do interviews, try to identify candidates, try to get volunteers, and also I'm helped out by CJ Chapman, who's our party secretary, and Tatiana Morani, who is our party treasurer. And then at the campaign committee on the statewide level, I serve in that capacity with my other co-chair, Darren Robbins, who's been the longtime lone chair of that campaign committee, who's from southwestern New York, southern tier area. And, we meet monthly. Both organizations meet monthly, but the campaign committee, we've been very focused on 2022 and working with 4 working groups that the state committee created to try to assist with making 2022 a banner year and trying to regain our ballot status.
Yes.
So we take turns facilitating those meetings of the campaign committee, create agendas, and take turns taking minutes as well.
So from what I have seen, a lot of the Green parties have co-chairs instead of just one. And when I was involved in a progressive group on campus, we didn't have a chair. It was more loosely structured. So kindly explain how the 2 chairs work together.
So the idea of the 2 co-chairs is that you have continuity from year to year. So where a new co-chair might be elected the following year, you still have a co-chair who has been there, familiar with the operations of the committee, et cetera. And just to give an example, I did some work in southwestern New York when I was early in the Green Party, not actually a formed county chapter, but when I moved back to the eastern part of New York, I helped co-found the Warren County Green Party, where we actually had co-chairs and we tried to have gender parity as well within the party. And so one term would be 2 years and then the other term would be 1 year for those positions. So you always had one new leader stepping up within the party.
Okay, that makes sense. So that way you can have a person with experience on the committee and also someone new. You get both the benefits of both.
Yeah, and actually in the Warren County Green Party, we actually had co-treasurers and co-secretaries as well. So it was kind of nice to have someone that you knew who was going to take over, whereas sometimes if you just have one officer, you might have an entirely new board stepping in depending on how your bylaws are written, and that could kind of stunt the growth at that time.
That sounds like I'm sorry, go ahead.
Nope, you go ahead.
I said that sounds like a very smart way to do it. It sounds like it's a well thought out approach.
I definitely like that approach, and we do that on the statewide level as well. With our executive committee, we have co-chairs.
That's good. So earlier you mentioned that you've been a union activist. So is the Green Party in Upper Hudson building coalitions with the unions?
I would say that we're building coalitions with, labor activists. The Green Party has always been a strong proponent of the labor movement and been involved in labor. And this past presidential election in 2020, we had the only actual labor union ticket, where we had Howie Hawkins and Angela Walker, who were both union members and union leaders and just unionists in general. But yeah, So I'm also vice president of the local Troy Area Labor Council, and certainly been involved in the labor movement a long time. My family members, a lot of teachers who were in unions, and I myself have been in several unions throughout my career and feel strongly about it. And to me, it's the best democratic way to change your existence, especially at work. You see something that's wrong, and you have the power to change it through the union. That's very exciting. So,
So what changes have you seen unions making?
I'm sorry. Yeah, I was just going to say that, we, as a party, as the Upper Hudson Green Party, we walked the picket line with the workers, been involved in several big campaigns locally. A few years ago, it was Momentive Performance Materials, and then most recently it was with the New York State Nurses Association fighting for a first contract at Albany Medical Center. So we've walked the picket line with them, for probably 3 or 4 years in a row. So those are the kinds of ways that we get involved locally.
So you've been on the picket line with the unions right in the middle of the battles.
Definitely. And it's good to hear where people are coming from. And obviously when you're on the picket line with folks, they're from all different political walks of life. But they are fighting to improve their working conditions. Like, it was very different walking the picket line at Momentive, where you have a bunch of folks who are mainly Republicans who are pro-Trump, versus the New York State Nurses Association, which, were mostly liberal folks in support of the Democratic Party. But it's so good to have those on-the-ground conversations with people who are on the picket line who are fighting to improve their conditions.
Yes. So there's not too many Republican unions, is there?
I don't know. I would say that, there's a lot of both. I would say
Oh, really?
The majority of the labor movement, tends to be, especially AFL-CIO, which is over most of the unions, very much in support of the Democratic Party. But no, there's certainly some more conservative unions, and even the ones who typically endorse liberals and Democrats, they tend to, endorse Republicans where there is no challenger or they're the incumbent with a known win to try to get friendly with that candidate, even if they don't see eye to eye on everything. So I would say it varies. Certainly my own unions have endorsed both Republicans and Democrats. I always abstain from such endorsements, even at the Labor Council level, because personally I don't believe we should be putting any faith in either the Republican Party or any of their allied parties, which can carry them on their line. And in New York State and in our area, that's typically the Conservative Party and the Working Families Party.
That is interesting. So earlier you mentioned about looking for candidates for 2022. Are you hoping to run some people in 2022?
We are definitely hoping to run people in 2022. We're hoping to run a statewide slate. For ballot access, basically the only position that we would need to run is someone for governor. And then we would need 45,000 signatures. And I think it's about 40 days. It might be 42 days, which is a very tight turnaround if anyone's ever done petitioning. It used to be 15,000. And then you obviously want to try to get at least double the amount of signatures to avoid challenges and being knocked off the ballot. So we're looking at probably 90,000 signatures. And then if we do get on the ballot,
90,000.
Right. And so if we do get on the ballot, then in November, we need to get a vote total of 130,000 or 2%, but basically it's 2%, which we have only done twice in New York State history. Once with Howie Hawkins, with his run against Andrew Cuomo, and the other run was with Ralph Nader. And so basically they set New York State, Cuomo and the Democrats typically set the rules so it would totally exclude alternative parties. So it excludes the Greens and the Libertarians basically from ever gaining ballot status back. We actually at the state level just wrote an open letter to Governor Hochul, and that was in coordination with the Libertarian Party, who were also in a lawsuit against New York State over these new ballot access rules.
That would be great if you can win that, if they can win that lawsuit.
It would be. It keeps getting delayed. We're not really sure how it's going to work out. I'm hopeful, but we're also planning for the worst, where we need to go forward with these new rules. So we're preparing for 2022 to pay petitioners and get petitioners out there. But yeah, we're hoping to run at least a statewide slate, which would be governor, lieutenant governor, comptroller, and attorney general. But we're also hoping to run congressional candidates, assembly, senate candidates, and if there's any local races which happen to be vacated by other candidates, it'd be nice to run those as well. So if anybody's interested, please reach out to the Green Party in New York.
So if somebody out there wants to run under the Green Party, they should get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can go to gpny.org, which is our state party website. And then you can go to elections, and we have a candidate questionnaire right there on the website, or you can just email us for more information.
All right. And then you look the questionnaire over, and if their values align with yours, then you consider them for the candidate.
Yeah, so in terms of basic requirements, we ask that question whether you're in line with our platform, which we do have a state party platform posted on the website, which we're actually in the process of updating in sections right now. But the other requirements are that you are not registered Democrat, Republican, or their allied parties, which typically in New York means the Working Families Party or the Conservative Party. We do accept people who are registered independent, meaning no party, Green, or any other minor party that doesn't typically cross-endorse the major parties.
Sounds good. So how else can our audience support you?
You can check out our Facebook page, Upper Hudson Green Party. Please donate to the Green Party in New York. Also at gpny.org. We're really trying to raise money to pay petitioners and, gain our ballot status back so we can actually have a voice instead of being funneled into, the two major parties, the Democrats and Republicans.
Excellent. So thank you for coming on the podcast today and sharing with us all the exciting things your party is doing.
Thank you, Andrew. Thank you for your time, and thank you for your good work, too.
Sure thing. All the best to you and your party, Caleb. Take care.
You too.